the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, I think, is one of those instruments of our national finances that, it gets an amount of press, maybe not enough press. And recently, there have been, a combination of things happening. A report came out that it suffered losses at the end of the last quarter. They made back ground. We didn't necessarily know about it until now, and you had a interesting, to me, take on it that you just told me, so I'd like to share that with the audience.
Well, my take on it is that we're having a delayed reaction. The loss was made last year. We're actually gaining ground now. The report was laid in Parliament in February, but we're now hearing about these losses. When I mean hearing about it, it's now taking up media space in June. We're in June, right? Yeah,
yes.
I'm losing track. So I feel, I don't want to say it's much ado about nothing, because hearing that we as a country, citizens have lost money is never a good thing. In my direct investments, if I were to open a statement and then saw that I lost a significant amount of money, I want to know why. So I'm not going to dismiss it, but we must understand that the investing in the heritage, the investment that occurs with the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is a long-term thing. And this is expected in a long-term investment. There are ups and there are downs. So when we are hearing about the down way after, and we're in an up, I have a kind of mixed reaction. It feels like I'm being annoyed or I'm concerned about something that done gone already.
Well, that said though, so it was one quarter, I believe, where all the losses were reported.
Or is it two?
I'm not
about
entirely
half,
sure if it was on the They gave the third and the fourth quarter report at the same time.
Right.
But I believe it was said that the losses were experienced in the fourth quarter. Regardless, I believe it's the same people managing the fund, the year before.
Yes.
We had big gains, right? Despite the withdrawals, they were able to earn enough that it kind of maintained the fund at a reasonable level.
You're talking about for 2021?
Either 21 or 20. Yeah, well, I guess it would be 21,
because I know
yes.
It was declining in 2021 already. There was some decline, but I don't know if the decline in I can't recall if the decline in 2021 was based on loss in investment or withdrawals because of COVID. Because those are different things.
I think the decline was due to withdrawals. So when it came to the actual performance of the fund, right, they gained back a lot of ground that the withdrawals took, which to me, the regret I have is, well, imagine if we didn't have to withdraw, the fund would be so much stronger.
And we're talking about withdrawals from 2021 into 2022. Right. And then we had the downturn in the global.
These losses are losses on the investment.
Investment, yes.
Which that's the troubling thing. And maybe perhaps we kind of had so much success the year before, because I found that the reported figures were great, were incredible. It's like, I mean, investing is not supposed to be this easy. And maybe we were, due to some bad luck. Now, economist Mala Dukaran, one of the things that she said was, well, it's supposed to be fixed assets 65%, and then you could, more volatile assets 35%. I do wonder if maybe somebody had the bright idea. And maybe I don't know to what extent that's a requirement or if that's just a guideline. And maybe somebody thought, let's be a bit more aggressive for the HSF to try to grow it as quickly as possible. And it's just that in this case, it really, well, that's to put it very lightly.
Well, I think that's the nature of investing. Now, I am not an expert in investment. But what little understanding I have, it's more of I would say an art versus a science. There might be some science to it, but it's an art, and that's why there are losses and there are gains. Now, if it is by law or even by policy, the investment should have been a particular way. Now we see why it should have been that way, because the purpose of our Heritage and Stabilization Fund, well, it's threefold, but the two major things are to give us a cushion in downturn, when there's a downturn in oil prices, and also to be as an alternative income generating scheme. And the third thing is also to secure the future for our, children financially. Yes. So when you have that sort of fund, because there are different ways that you can have sovereign. This is a sovereign wealth fund, right?
Yes.
And there are different ways that you can have that, different purposes. There's a savings side and there's an investment side where you're trying to gain money. So I can see you trying to balance those two things. You might have to play around in where fixed versus equity, and there's some playing around involved. So as I said, I don't want to cast aspersions or on those who are doing the investing, because I'm assuming these people, when I look at the board of directors, and I don't know how much they are involved in the investing, these people are experts in their area. And if this is the first time in the fund was there since 2007, the first time in all those 16 years that we've had a loss.
I mean,
how do you view, is that really a major thing in investing terms?
I agree with you. I think people were calling out with the people in charge, and I'm like, well, hold on. But they had successes before, so we can't just say, well, oh, they did this thing wrong before, and now, that means that they're absolutely wrong. I'm not willing to just jump to that conclusion, as you rightfully say. But the flip side is, consider this. If about half the fund, I believe, in actuality, half the fund was in fixed assets and half was in more equity, more investments. More volatile investments. The fact that it lost like a sixth of its value, it probably means, and I could be wrong, I don't know, but the fixed assets are fixed, right?
Yes.
So it should
whether it's
only
up or down, you get this amount of money.
I don't think anything extreme enough to mess with that occurred.
You're right.
So it means that really and truly from the volatile investments, we might have lost about a third.
It was volatile. But then as the minister would have pointed out, Mr. Imbert, when they noticed what was going on, they changed the way that they were investing. I can't remember the exact phrase. He said they invested in short-term fixed. Basically, they invested in a different way, and we have seen that it has borne fruit. We have actually gained ground. We've gained, 300 and something million?
I think we're more than that.
I have the figure. We've gained US 327 million in the last 6 months. So as I said, it happens. The thing is, how do you react when you realize there's a downturn, and it seems that they've made the right call, and now we're on the upturn. I just wish in the future this knowledge is made known, or the media, whose fault it is that we did not know about this before now.
So the irony is, like, if we just follow your line of reasoning, this might not be a bad thing. Yes, mistakes might have been made. And in a volatile market, it's hard to say, well, it was a mistake, because you can't predict the future. So it might have been the correct decision under different circumstances if the market just moved differently. But 2022 was 2022,
yes,
right?
Geopolitical problems, interest rate, inflation, this, that, oil. There was a lot going on.
The economic crisis is not even responding to how they usually do, where you have high inflation and high employment, and you can't spend your way out of this because of just how it's unfolding, right? So it seems as though this is the best case scenarios for when things don't go correct. It's the situation is fixed. It's actually fixed. It's not just, well, it's festered and then it kind of, well, we eventually stabilize the problem. No, it was fixed in a quick hurry.
Right.
But the flip side is we're not being told about it, so it makes it actually potentially look worse than it is.
But isn't everyone told about it? It was laid in Parliament in February. It was laid in Parliament within the required time by the legislation in February. But then what? Why, as I said, why was it publicized? Why wasn't it broadcast? Is it because it wasn't placed on the Ministry of Finance's website? Is that the issue that it really, why is it being brought to the public's attention now?
I do wonder if the bad news was minimized, and to some extent, both Karen and I and Keaton have said this, where the Minister of Finance does to some extent have a responsibility to not just release bad news irresponsibly, which could affect confidence in our economy, right? You do have to guard against that. You have to balance that out with proper transparency. So I do wonder if this is a case where the actual mistake here is, well, I don't want to release the bad news, but then it comes out eventually later, and it kind of looks as though, well, why the delay? I mean,
is it a temper? Like, for example, my reaction, I'm concerned that we lost money, but I'm seeing that we're gaining, so we're already in the fixing it. We're in the fixing it phase.
So it does kind of work, which, but is it something that is? Do we want to encourage this sort of
holding of information?
Yes,
we should encourage more freedom of information then.
More freedom, yes. I'm not saying that we have to have total freedom, but because if we're really objective about the situation, it's not all bad. But the worst part about it is the fact that it was delayed.
Actually, what bothers me more than all of that I haven't heard anybody express a concern about? one of the minister's reaction is that the fund now in 2023 is no worse than it was in 2015 when the government took over. So it's at the $5.5 billion mark.
Yeah.
It reminded me of you ever heard of the parable of the talents in the Bible?
Yes.
Where a master went on vacation. Oh, sorry, didn't say vacation. He left on a trip. And he had 3 servants. He left one with 5 talents. He left one with 3 talents. He left one with 1 talent. When he came back, the servant who had 5 talents doubled it.
Right.
The servant who had 2 talents, or is it 3, doubled it. And the servant who had 1 talent, all he did was hide it. Because he said he knows that this was his master is a hard man, a difficult man who reaps where he doesn't sow. So he's afraid. So he didn't do anything with it. He hid it. And his master was like, you're basically a lazy servant. At least put it in the bank. Now, all that to say, the master in that parable was annoyed because he came back and he didn't lose any money, but he just had the same 1 talent. He didn't gain anything. Nothing was done. And I sort of feel like that. I'm not saying that the money wasn't invested. They said they made investments. It just didn't pan out. But I don't know if having the same amount of money from 2015 to now is a good thing at all.
The irony is, I actually felt the same way, but because I felt the same way previously, so when the HSF gained money, it kind of helped cushion the losses from the money that they had to take out during COVID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which and like I said, there was the regret of, well, what if we had all that money, right, being invested, whether it's fixed or volatile assets, how much more the HSF could be for the future.
For the future.
So because of that, I think, like how the delay kind of muted your response,
Yes.
because this is like the second or third go around where I'm kind of seeing the same scenario where, okay, we maintained what it was however long ago, but it's like, but we're not seeing growth.
We're not seeing growth, and that is a problem
over the
for
long
me.
term.
Again, it reminded me of my own personal thing. I have a little investment in an insurance company. I got my statement recently. And I started this insurance with the investment scheme since I was 26. And it would surprise you to know I'm significantly older than 26 right now. And when I saw the little bit of money, I was like, all these years and that is all I made. Now imagine my reaction if I saw the same amount of money from 7 years ago. So that is really my major concern.
That is true.
Where is the growth?
Folks, we have to take a break, but that is probably the $1 million question, which, like I said, this is the second or third time you could ask it. And hopefully this might be the last, but I won't hold my breath.